How did you become interested in this field?
I got interested in this field as a fairly young child. I was on a trip with my family to visit my uncle in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I was skipping stones with my uncle on the James River, and I found one of these Carcharodon megalodon shark's teeth, and I skipped it and realized that's not what it was, that it wasn't a rock, and I went out and got it. And then I just started getting really interested in sharks, and then it sort of translated into learning about other species. And so from the time I was about 12, I knew that I wanted to be a marine biologist, and I went, and took biology curriculum in undergrad, and then off to graduate school. Worked a stint at SeaWorld, and worked actually for the state for a number of years before moving to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. In graduate school, I actually did work on manatees, and got real interested in that, and that's part of my job today. But I guess for me, it was about finding something like endangered species where I felt like I was making a difference.
Okay. I have no visual aids. Give up my story, but
You can borrow mine.
it's a nice. I got interested in. I grew up in a coastal town, so I was born in Florida, but I spent most of my youth in Connecticut, on the Long Island Sound. So we spent a lot of time down at the beach and in the water. So I was always interested in ocean and in things, either fishing or just being out near the water. So when I finished high school and was looking for something to study at college, I ended up studying marine science just because that's what my interest was. It wasn't so much that I had a specific job or that I was looking to do anything, but it's just that's what I liked to do. So that's what I wanted to study. After I got my bachelor's degree, worked for a few years outside of that. I actually also worked for SeaWorld out in San Diego for a few years before I came back to Florida for graduate school. But when I came back for my graduate work, then I was looking at more of what am I going to do for a job. So I looked at the more on the policy side of it. So I got a master's in environmental planning, so I could sort of mesh my marine science with the policy side of it. Just seemed like that was going to make it a little bit easier to actually make a living in the sciences.
What would you say is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job, I would actually say a couple things. One is the days when I get to get out in the field and actually, help with the manatee rescue, something like that. I also enjoy all the work that I get to do with the natural springs in Florida and protecting warm water for manatees, which also helps protect other creatures. I think protection of springs is kind of a win-win situation, so I really enjoy that part.
Yep. I would also say there's probably two things that I would come to mind anyway. One of them is getting out in the field. I mean, one nice thing about the job I do have is over the years I've been able to see most parts of Florida out on a boat. So you get out, getting paid to be out looking at different areas and looking at manatee issues or other marine issues where you're actually out in the environment rather than just at a desk. And that's doesn't always happen real frequently. So when it does happen, that's always kind of a good break. And then sort of the complete opposite of that is I also get a lot of enjoyment out of doing a lot of the computer work, working with the geographic information system data, looking at information we have on manatees and trying to sift through that to figure out, what does that mean from a policy standpoint. And I get a lot of enjoyment out of that too.
What would you say is the most challenging part of your job?
The most challenging part of my job is really related to politics. Believe it or not, in endangered species, there's a lot of people that either love the animals or they hate them, or they don't want something stopping their development. And so what they might do is call their local legislator, either at the state side or even a federal legislator, which ends up calling people in my supervisory chain, and it sort of changes your work priorities. And so rather than working on the things that you feel are important or critical at that point, you kind of have to switch direction and work on something because it's kind of gotten the attention of someone at the political level.
You keep stealing my answers. I think related to that too, I was going to say politics, but it's just even though we're in a biology field and my job is focused on manatee issues, a lot of what you end up doing is managing people, because the rules and the things that you put in place are for people to follow to help the animal. So it's challenging to deal with people who have very wide ranges of ideas about what needs to be done, or even if they agree on what needs to be done, they don't necessarily agree on how to do it or who's responsible or anything else. So that side of it is always challenging, trying to deal with the different personalities and the different values, and it's really never the same, even though the issue is the same. The people you're dealing with vary every place you go. It's a little bit different.
What other jobs related to the environment are located at your office?
Well, I'm actually my own office. I'm actually my own satellite office. My main office is in Jacksonville. We have folks that do work on recovery of the different species. Actually, work on regulatory, and then programs such as landowner assistance, where they're working with landowners to protect animals and things like that might be on their lands. I'm co-located in Tallahassee. I work part of the week out of the office, the Florida Fish and Wildlife office, and with their bear management program.
And the agency I work with, the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, that's pretty much all we do is related to various aspects of environmental protection. So the agency itself, we have a law enforcement component that's actually out enforcing on the water and on the lands. We have land managers who actively manage hunting areas, wildlife management areas, and other things. Within the office, my immediate office that I deal with, there's a lot of staff that deal with manatee protection issues, but there's also staff that deal specifically with sea turtles, both with beach nourishment issues and issues with them on the Florida beaches. We have staff that deal with black bears. Some of you have probably heard a lot of the news in the last year or so with the reinstituting of the black bear hunt. Very controversial among different people, and staff in my office had to spend hundreds of hours dealing with that. So kind of different species, sometimes similar issues, but they're between black bears, manatees, and sea turtles. We've got staff to do all aspects of all of those species.
What other jobs in Tallahassee do you know of that are related to the environment?
Well, because it's Tallahassee and it's a state capital, there's a number of state agencies here. Besides Florida Fish and Wildlife, you also have Department of Environmental Protection, and you have the local water management districts, and you also have Florida State Parks. For federal, we have United States Geological Survey and the U.S. Forest Service, for example, and of course down south we have the St. Mark's Refuge.
And then there are also people who aren't working directly for government that are also maybe working specifically on environmental issues, referred to as non-government organizations like Nature Conservancy, Audubon, Sierra Club. There are a lot of environmental groups that employ staff, either legal staff or biologists, that most of the time work cooperatively with the state agencies to try to accomplish environmental protection goals.
Do you think there's a good market for people in Tallahassee looking for jobs that are environmentally conscious?
I think that there is. I think that one of the biggest reasons is because Tallahassee is the state capital, and so I think there are a lot of opportunities with a number of different state and federal agencies here.
Yeah, I would agree. There are opportunities, but it can be challenging too, though, because we've got several universities here. You also have a lot of people who are coming out with undergraduate degrees and graduate degrees, and they're all trying for the same job. So although there are a good number of jobs from time to time, it can also be pretty competitive to get those, especially the entry-level jobs.